Kulgara, in a land of myth and a time of magic, the destiny of a great kingdom rests on the shoulders of a young boy. His name, Merlin. At Forest Day, Arthur's hunting party in the woods, armed with crossbows. Arthur sends two of his knights around another way. Arthur, whispers, Merlin. Merlin, what is it? Arthur, I don't know. We will surround it. I want you to go in there and flush it out. Merlin, you want me to go in there? You just said you don't know what it is. It could be dangerous. Arthur, let's hope so. Now go. Merlin sneaks through the woods and picks up a large stick. Merlin sees a unicorn and drops the stick. Merlin walks up to it and hears the hunters coming. Merlin, go. Go. Please, go. Shush. They're gonna kill you. Please, go. Arthur, no. Arthur shoots the unicorn. Merlin goes to it, cries as he strokes its head while it dies. Merlin, I'm sorry. Arthur, ha ha. A unicorn. Merlin, what have you done? Arthur, don't be such a girl, Merlin. Merlin sees a white-cloaked man, Anhora, behind Arthur in the woods. Arthur, what are you looking at? Arthur and the other two knights turn around, but the man is gone. King's Palace, Council Chamber of Doom, Day. Arthur and his knights enter. Merlin carries the unicorn's horn on a pillow. Arthur, father. A unicorn's horn to grace the walls of Camelot. Uther, magnificent. It's the first one I've seen. Uther takes the horn. Uther, Gaius, look at this. Gaius, it is very impressive, my lord. Uther, what is it, Gaius? Speak your mind. Gaius, unicorns are rare and mystical creatures. There is a legend that says that bad fortune will come to anyone who slays one. Uther, nonsense. We will be the envy of every kingdom. Arthur, I'm pleased you like it. King's Palace, Main Square, Day. Merlin and Gaius walk through the square. Merlin, I don't understand how Arthur can have taken any pleasure from killing the unicorn.
Gaius, Arthur is a hunter. It's in his blood, whereas you are something entirely different.
Merlin, it was the most beautiful creature I have ever seen. I wish you'd been there. Gaius, it's a rare privilege. Alas, there are few unicorns still alive.
Merlin, you try telling that to Arthur. Gaius, I can imagine it would be difficult.
King's Palace, Arthur's chambers. Arthur, my horse threw a shoe. Take it to the blacksmith. Make sure he does a good job. And when you've done that, you can polish my shush. Arthur turns around and sees Merlin staring out the window. Arthur, saddle. Merlin, have you listened to a word I've said? Merlin nods. Arthur, you've got a face like a wounded bear ever since we got back from that hunting trip. Don't tell me you're still upset about the unicorn. Merlin, I don't think you should have killed it. Arthur, oh, really? And why is that? Merlin, it was doing no harm. What purpose did you serve by killing it? Arthur, we were hunting. That's what you do. Would you have me bring it home as a pet? Look at this. Merlin, what? Arthur, do you know what that is? Merlin, no Arthur, rat droppings. My chambers are infested. You need to spend less time worrying about unicorns and more time worrying about rats. Someone knocks. Arthur, enter. A guard enters. Guard, my lord, the king requests your service as a matter of urgency. Arthur, to Merlin, find that rat. At field, day.
Uther picks a dead piece of wheat stalk from a field.
Uther, every single ear has died. We've received reports that it's the same throughout the entire kingdom. Arthur, I rode through this valley only yesterday. The crop looked healthy enough then. Uther, it happened overnight. Farmers are at a loss to explain it. Arthur, is it a disease of some kind? Uther, perhaps. I've asked the court physician to conduct some tests. We must ration what little food we have left. King's palace, physician's chambers, Merlin. Any ideas what caused the crops to die? Gaius. I'm here to complete all the tests. No disease I have heard of could spread through the entire kingdom in a single night. Merlin. What could kill all the plants other than a disease? Gaius. It is not killing all the plants. The trees and hedges around the crop fields are unharmed. Unfortunately, you can't eat trees and hedges. Merlin. It's only killing plants we can eat, Gaius. It appears so. Merlin. If it's not a disease, it must be magic. Gaius. We can't assume that, Merlin. Perhaps there is something in the soil and water that can explain it. I can't tell the king it's caused by sorcery until I'm completely certain. King's palace, main square. Villagers stand in a long queue leading into the palace grounds. A guard rations out grain. Guard. Next. Arthur. The livestock is either dying or has been eaten. Food and water's very scarce and we're distributing rations, but they're very meager. Arthur opens a small shaft in the grain store, dumping out a small pile of grain. Uther. This is all the grain we have. Arthur. The people are growing scared. There's been some looting. Uther. We must maintain order at all costs. Panic will make the situation worse. I'll issue a decree that looters will be executed. From tonight, Camelot will be under curfew. Arthur. I'll see to it. Lower town. Merlin passes Gwen as she heads to the well along the outer wall. Villager 1. Give it back to me. It's mine. Villager 2. It's not yours. Gwen. Merlin. Is it true what they're saying about the crops? They're all dead. Merlin. Afraid so. We may have to start tightening our belts. Gwen. I'm sure Arthur will think of something. Merlin. Well, and if he doesn't, I will. Gwen starts pumping for water, but only dry sand comes out. Gwen. Merlin. King's palace, main square. Uther and Arthur stand at the well in the square. Uther sifts sand through his fingers into the well bucket. Uther. Sand. And you say the well is full of it? Arthur. I sent men down to the underground reservoir. There is no trace of water to be found. Uther. First the crops, and now this. Arthur. It's the same throughout the kingdom. There's precious little water anywhere. Uther. Gaius. Can you offer any explanation for this? Gaius. I cannot think of a scientific explanation. I can only conclude it's the result of sorcery. Uther. I believe you're right. It is the work of magic. The kingdom is under attack. King's palace, physician's chambers. Merlin sits with a bucket of sand and his magic book open in front of him. Merlin. Greo Gesiman, Lecken. Gesiman J. Dry Waiter. Gaius approaches. Merlin. I was just, Gaius. I was hoping you might be trying to turn it back into water. I know I've cautioned against using magic, but if ever there was a time to use your talents, it's now. Merlin. Well, I wish I knew how. I've tried everything. If it is magic, it's more powerful magic than I possess. King's palace, drawbridge, day. Arthur addresses a group of guards. Arthur. Patrol the market and the lower town. No one is to leave their homes. Dismissed. Merlin enters the square. Arthur. Merlin. You do realize there's a curfew? Merlin. Yeah, I was in your chambers, hunting for the rat.
Arthur. Did you find it? Merlin. No. Arthur. So you have been outwitted by a rat.
Merlin. They do say rats are very intelligent, Arthur. More intelligent than you, it would seem. Go home. It'd be embarrassing to have to lock up my own servant for breaking the curfew. Arthur sees the white-cloaked man, Anhora, walk through the courtyard corridor and into the palace. Arthur. What was that? Merlin. What? Merlin and Arthur run after him. Arthur jumps over the courtyard corridor ledge. They chase Anhora down the upper corridor, down some stairs, and down the wrought iron stairway to the burial vaults where they lose him. Arthur signs to Merlin. Merlin nods, then follows Arthur. Arthur, that means you go the other way and cut him off. Merlin, okay. Merlin and Arthur go in opposite directions and end up back at the wrought iron stairway without seeing anyone. Then they see Anhora's silhouette as he briefly rounds the corner. Arthur has Merlin go the other way again. They end up back at the wrought iron stairway again. Arthur, where is he? Merlin, I didn't see anyone. Arthur, he was right here. Don't tell me you let him get past you. Merlin, Arthur, no one passed me. Arthur, are you blind? Anhora, are you looking for me? I am Anhora, keeper of the unicorns. Arthur, Camelot is under curfew. What's your business here? Anhora, I have come to deliver a message. Arthur, and who is this message for? Anhora, it is for you, Arthur Pendragon. Arthur, is it you who's responsible for killing our crops, turning our water into sand? Anhora, you alone are responsible for the misfortune that has befallen Camelot. Arthur, me? You think I'd bring drought and famine upon my own people? Anhora, when you killed the unicorn, you unleashed a curse. For this, Camelot will suffer greatly. Arthur, if you have put a curse on Camelot, you will lift it, or you will pay with your life. Anhora, the curse was not my doing. Arthur, undo the curse or face execution. Anhora, only you can do that. You will be tested. Arthur, you're under arrest. Arthur reaches for Anhora, but he disappears and Arthur stumbles. Anhora reappears on the wrought iron stairway. Anhora, until you have proven yourself, and made amends for killing the unicorn, the curse will not be lifted. If you fail any of these tests, Camelot will be damned for all eternity. King's Palace, Physician's Chambers, Day. Gaius, and you believe what this Anhora said about the curse to be true? Merlin, well, you said there's a legend that misfortune comes to anyone who slays a unicorn. It makes sense. Gaius, not much for breakfast, I'm afraid. We're down to our last few scraps of food. Merlin, where did you get the water to make the tea? Gaius, fortunately, for both of us, you forgot to empty your bath yesterday. Merlin, you're making tea from my bath water. Gaius, it's not so bad. Perhaps a little soapy. Merlin sighs. Gaius, what does Arthur think about the curse? Merlin, scoff. He doesn't believe it's his fault. He's convinced Anhora's responsible for it. Gaius, if you do not wish to drink bath water, you better make sure Arthur sees sense. King's Palace, Arthur's chambers. Arthur puts on his boots in his chambers. He finds a hole in one of them. Arthur, that rat. It's eaten through my boot. Look at it. Merlin, I guess the rat must be as hungry as the rest of us. Arthur, you think this is funny? Merlin, moderately. Arthur, get it mended. Find that rat. Merlin, have you given any more thought to what Anhora said last night? Arthur, well, he may have escaped last night, but at least we now know who we're looking for. I told my father I'll find this Anhora and put an end to it. Merlin, what if he was telling the truth about the curse? Arthur, you think I'm responsible for bringing suffering upon my own people? Merlin, no, not deliberately. When you killed the unicorn, I saw Anhora in the forest. Arthur, why didn't you say anything? Merlin, it was just for a second, and then he disappeared. I didn't even. Well, I thought I was seeing things. But he was definitely there. Arthur, that doesn't actually prove anything. Merlin, doesn't it make you think he might be telling the truth? Arthur, because he was skulking about in the forest, that makes me trust him even less. Merlin, why would Anhora appear in Camelot, and then lie to you? Arthur, we had him cornered. He was trying to talk his way out of it by blaming me. Merlin, Arthur, he can disappear into thin air. He didn't have to talk his way out of anything. Arthur, my father has warned me about sorcerers like him. They will not rest until our kingdom is destroyed. Merlin, well, I believe he's telling the truth, Arthur. Then you're a fool. You cannot trust a single word a sorcerer says. You do well to remember that. Now, I think I've figured out what Anhora's next move is going to be, and when he makes it, we're going to be waiting. King's Palace, Grain Store, night. Merlin leans against a pillar near the grain store with his eyes closed, smacking his lips. Arthur hits him with a broom. Arthur, don't you worry about keeping watch, Merlin. You just make yourself comfortable. Merlin sighs and smacks his lips. Arthur, stop smacking your lips. It's annoying. Merlin, I'm thirsty. Arthur, we're all thirsty, Merlin. Merlin sighs. Arthur, shush. Someone's coming. Arthur draws his sword and Merlin follows him into the grain store. They see the intruder's silhouette. Arthur motions to Merlin. Arthur, mouths, you go over there and come in. Merlin nods. Arthur, show yourself, before I run you through. Merlin picks up a scythe hook. A man edges around the corner with a shovel in one hand and a sack of grain in the other. Arthur, who are you? Evan. My name is. Arthur, speak up. Evan. My name is Evan, my lord. Merlin comes out of hiding. Arthur, I see you think you can help yourself to our grain reserves. My father has ordered that looters be executed. Evan, please, my lord. I do not steal for myself. I have 3 children, they have not eaten for 2 days. They are hungry. Arthur, it's the same for everyone. Evan, I know that it is wrong to steal. I couldn't bear to see them starve. Arthur, and could you bear for your children to see you be executed? Evan shakes his head, close to tears. Arthur, then you should go home. If you're caught stealing again, I will not spare you. Evan, yes, my lord. Thank you. Evan smiles, puts down the sack of grain and shovel, and starts to leave. Arthur, wait. Arthur picks up the sack of grain and tosses it to Evan. Arthur, use it sparingly. It might be the last food you and your family get for some time. Evan, you have shown yourself to be merciful and kind, my lord. This will bring its own reward. Lower Town, day. Gwen sees a man run past her in the lower town, the guards chasing him. Guard 1, stop him. Guard 2, come back here. Guard 3, stop that man. He's been looting. Gwen looks over by the well and sees a drop of water on the spout. She goes to it, puts a bucket under the spout, and pushes the pump. Water gushes out. King's Palace, Arthur's chambers. Arthur and Merlin gulp down large mugs of water. Arthur, never knew water could taste so good. Merlin, my throat was so dry, I thought I wouldn't be able to talk. Arthur, well, at least some good would have come from the drought, then. Merlin, more. Arthur motions towards his mug and Merlin fills it. Arthur, the sands disappeared. The water returned to the well. It doesn't make any sense. I suppose you have some explanation for this, Merlin. Let's hear it. Merlin, Anhora said you would be tested. And last night, in the grain store, you let that villager go. And he said it would bring its own reward. Arthur, he was merely grateful, and so he should have been. Merlin, maybe that was your first test. You passed it, so the curse has begun to lift. Perhaps this is your reward. I know you don't have to listen to me. Arthur, glad we agree on something. Merlin, if you're tested again, you have a chance to end your people's suffering. I know you want that more than anything. Perhaps we should seek Anhora out. Arthur, I cannot negotiate with sorcerers. My father wouldn't hear of it. Merlin, then it's probably best you don't tell him. Arthur, I must go check on the guard. See if you can find me some food. Merlin mutters, find some food. Merlin sees the rat climb out of Arthur's boot. Merlin, spell. King's Palace, main square. Even more people continue to queue outside the grain store. Morgana walks among them with Arthur. Morgana, who are they? Arthur. They've come from the outlying villages in search of food. There's not enough rations to feed the people who are already here. Morgana, you shouldn't blame yourself. I'm sure you're doing everything you can. Arthur, it is not enough. Arthur leaves and Gwen approaches Morgana. Morgana, did you manage to find any food? Gwen pulls a cloth back from her basket revealing some bread. Morgana, where did you get that? Gwen, I was able to smuggle it out of the palace kitchens. Morgana, share it out amongst the children and old people. Make it go as far as you can. King's Palace, Arthur's chambers, night. Merlin pours some meat stew into a bowl. Arthur. Lost my appetite. Merlin, you have to eat something. Arthur, I can't, not while my people are starving. Do you really believe I'm responsible for the curse? Merlin, I'm afraid so. Arthur, we're going to the forest, first thing in the morning. Maybe we can pick up Anhora's trail. Whatever it takes. Merlin, okay, but you have to eat. You won't be able to help anyone if you're too weak to pass the test. Arthur takes a bite. Arthur, what kind of meat is this? It has a very strange texture. Merlin, it's pork. Arthur, this isn't pork. It's far too stringy. What is it? It's, Arthur puts down his spoon. Arthur, it's rat, isn't it? Merlin nods. Try not to think about it. Arthur. Look at me. I'm being rude. Here I am, stuffing my face with this delicious stew when you're hungry, too. Come on, take a seat. Arthur forces Merlin down into the chair. Arthur. Eat. Merlin takes a bite. Arthur, Merlin. It's actually pretty tasty. Arthur, Well, I'm glad you like it. Because. Arthur fetches the pot of stew. Arthur, there's plenty more. Someone knocks. Arthur, enter. Morgana. Morgana, I hate to ask, but I was wondering if you had anything to eat. Arthur pauses and Merlin smiles. Merlin and Arthur search through the woods. Merlin, I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking for. Arthur, you're looking for footprints or broken branches. Anything that would indicate someone passed that. Arthur catches sight of Anhora. Arthur, Merlin, he's here. Arthur runs off. Merlin, Arthur. Merlin didn't see where he went. Arthur continues chasing Anhora and comes across Evan sitting next to a camp full of hoarded food. Arthur, you're a thief. Evan, wasn't that obvious when you caught me stealing your grain? Arthur, fortunately, I have more important things to deal with. Evan, you didn't really believe that story about my children, did you? Arthur, what kind of man lies about starving children to save his own skin? Evan, your people starve because you let thieves steal their grain. That is why they doubt you. Arthur, you don't speak for my people. Evan, hey, your father would never have allowed himself to be fooled like that. Arthur, you hold your tongue, or I will make time to teach you some manners. Evan, your father would have had me executed, but you didn't have the stomach for it, did you, Arthur? And that's why he doubts you'll make a good king. Arthur, you know nothing of what my father thinks. Evan, I think he wishes he had another son, one who was worthy of taking his place. You shame him. Arthur, pick up your sword. Evan, the king must fear the day when you will take the throne. Arthur attacks Evan. Evan, he fears you do not have enough strength to defeat his enemies. The king must wonder if you are even his son. Arthur strikes a fatal blow, but Evan has disappeared. Anhora appears behind Arthur. Arthur, This is your doing. Anhora, it was a test to see what is truly in your heart. Arthur, your tricks prove nothing. Anhora, why did you kill this man? Arthur, he insulted my honor. Anhora, you could have chosen to ignore his taunts. What harm would they do you? Arthur, you will lift the curse, sorcerer. Anhora, it is not in my power. Arthur, then you will die. Arthur tries to strike him, but Anhora disapparates and Arthur falls to the ground. Anhora, killing me will not help you. Arthur tries to strike him, but Anhora disapparates and Arthur falls to the ground again. Anhora, you have shown that you would kill a man to defend your pride. You have failed the test. For this, Camelot will pay dearly. Arthur, my people have done nothing. Anhora, your people's suffering is not my doing, it is yours. Anhora disappears. Merlin, Arthur, Arthur. Merlin finds Arthur lying ground. King's palace, grain store, day. Uther sifts rotten grain through his fingers as Arthur enters. Arthur, what is it? What's happened? Uther, all our remaining supplies have rotted. Every last grain. King's palace, physician's chambers, night. Merlin, I know Arthur's stubborn and pig-headed and annoying, but he cares about his people. More than he cares about himself. He will not forgive himself for making his people suffer. Gaius, you must make sure he doesn't do anything rash. Merlin, the mood he's in, I don't know what he's gonna to do. Gaius, ready. Merlin, sure they're not poisonous. Gaius, quite certain. Merlin and Gaius pick up giant insects. Gaius, they say they taste like chicken. Unless we're to starve, we must hope they're right. They bite into the crunchy insects. Merlin, this tastes nothing like chicken. King's palace, council chamber of doom, day. Arthur broods. Uther enters. Arthur, there are some supplies left in the palace stores. We are distributing them to the people, but there is not enough to live on. They will not survive for long. Uther, then you must stop distributing food to the people. Arthur, they will starve. Uther, we must conserve the food we have for our army. Arthur, we cannot let our people go without food. Uther, we must defend the kingdom at all cost. Arthur, what's the point of defending a kingdom when the people? Uther, well, what would you have me do? Arthur, starve to death. Ask the neighboring kingdoms for help. Uther, ha. Arthur, they may be able to spare some food. Uther, out of the question. As soon as they realize how weak we are, our enemies will strike against us. Arthur, you don't know that for certain. Uther, besides I would rather starve than beg my enemies for help. What of our kingdom's reputation? Have you no pride? Arthur, I cannot think of my pride when our people go hungry. They're all I can think of. Uther, give the order to stop distributing food to the people. Is that understood? Arthur, you'll have to give that order yourself. Uther, very well. But if you'd caught the sorcerer, I would not have to. That's your responsibility. One day you will understand what it takes to be king. King's palace, main square, day. People continue queuing in the square. Arthur and Merlin watch from the balcony. Arthur, they do not know yet know there is worse to come. Merlin, what do you mean? Arthur, my father is going to stop distributing food to the people. They are to be left to starve. I had a chance to lift the curse, and I failed them. Merlin, you weren't to know you were being tested. Arthur, my people are starving. Camelot is on the verge of collapse, and it is all my doing. At forest, day, Merlin, Anhora, show yourself, Anhora. Anhora appears. Anhora, you wanted to talk with me. Merlin, I've come to seek your help. The people are starving. They will soon be dead. Anhora, you must believe me when I say it gives me no pleasure to see your people suffering. Merlin, if it pains you, put an end to it. Anhora. It is not in my power to lift the curse. Merlin. Then give Arthur another chance. He has accepted it is his responsibility, and he will prove himself worthy and lift the curse if you give him one more chance. Anhora. You have faith in Arthur? Merlin. I trust him with my life. Anhora. Arthur must go to the Labyrinth of Gedref. There, he will face a final test. If he fails, there is no hope. The curse will destroy Camelot. Anhora disappears. Merlin. Wait. What kind of test will he face? Anhora. Telepathy, that is for Arthur alone to discover. King's Palace, Arthur's chambers, day. Arthur prepares for travel in his chambers. Merlin. Let me come with you. You don't know what form of test will take. I might be able to help. Arthur. You're not coming. I brought this curse upon Camelot. I'm gonna be the one to lift it, or die trying. Merlin. All right, how does you dying help anyone? Arthur. I'll die knowing I did everything I can. Merlin. I'm coming with you. Arthur. Merlin, you are to stay here, and help the people as best you can. Is that understood? Arthur rides out of Camelot and across the countryside. Merlin follows.
Labyrinth of Gedref. Arthur arrives at the labyrinth and enters. Merlin arrives shortly after and follows. Merlin meets Anhora in the labyrinth.
Merlin, you said Arthur would face a test. And here you are, preparing a trap for him. Anhora, the trap isn't for Arthur. It is for you. Geheften. Merlin is wrapped in vines from the labyrinth hedges. Labyrinth of Gedref. Arthur runs through the labyrinth and finds the exit to the sea. Merlin is sitting at a table on the shore, Anhora standing nearby.
Arthur. Merlin. Merlin, I'm sorry. Arthur, let him go. I'll take your test, but not till he's released. Anhora, that is not possible. Merlin is part of the test. Please sit. If you refuse the test, you will have failed and Camelot will be destroyed.
Arthur, I thought I told you to stay at home. Let's get on with it. Anhora, there are 2 goblets before you. One of the goblets contains a deadly poison, the other goblet, a harmless liquid. All the liquid from both goblets must be drunk, but each of you may only drink from a single goblet. Arthur, what kind of ridiculous test is that? What does that prove? Anhora, what it proves is for you to decide. If you pass the test, the curse will be lifted. Merlin, let's think about this. What if I drink from my goblet first? Arthur, if it's poisoned, you'll die. Merlin, and if it's not, then you'll have to drink from yours, and you'll die. There must be a way around it. Arthur, it is perfectly simple. One of us has to die. We have to find a way to determine which goblet has the poison, and then I'll drink it. Merlin, I will be the one to drink it. Arthur, this is my doing. I'm drinking it. Merlin, it is more important that you live. You're the future king. I'm just a servant. Arthur, this is no time to be a hero, Merlin. It really doesn't suit you. Merlin, sigh. What if I drink from mine first, and if that's not poisoned, I will then drink yours. Arthur, he said each of us is only allowed to drink from a single goblet. I had no idea you were so keen to die for me. Merlin, trust me, I can hardly believe it myself. Arthur, snort, I'm glad you are here, Merlin. Sigh, Merlin, I've got it. Right, we pour all the liquid into one goblet and then we can be sure it is poisoned. Then all the liquid can be drunk, and it will be from a single goblet. Arthur, you never cease to surprise me. You're a lot smarter than you look. Merlin, is that actually a compliment? Arthur, look out. Arthur points and Merlin looks. Arthur takes the 2 goblets and pour all of the liquid into one of them, holding it to drink. Merlin, no. I will drink it. Arthur, as if I'd let you. Merlin, you can't die. This isn't your destiny. Arthur, it seems you're wrong again. Merlin, listen to me. Arthur, you know me, Merlin. I never listen to you. Arthur toasts Merlin. Merlin, Arthur. Arthur drinks it. Merlin, no. What have you done? Arthur falls off the chair, unconscious. Merlin. Arthur, no. Merlin tries to shake Arthur awake. Merlin, Arthur. Arthur, come on. Arthur, come on. Come on. Come on. No. Come on. Merlin turns to Anhora. Merlin, please, please, just let me take his place. Anhora, this was Arthur's test, not yours. Merlin, you've killed him. I was meant to protect him. Anhora, he is not dead. He's merely consumed a sleeping draught. He will come round shortly. Merlin, what? Anhora, a unicorn is pure of heart. If you kill one, you must make amends by proving that you also are pure of heart. Arthur was willing to sacrifice his life to save yours. He has proven what is truly in his heart. The curse will be lifted. King's Palace, Merlin and Arthur ride into Camelot and dismount. Townsfolk are carrying around platters joyously. Gaius, Merlin, Arthur, there is good news. The crops are growing once again. They are bringing in the harvest. Merlin, you did it. Uther, is this your doing? Is the sorcerer dead? Arthur, he won't be troubling us anymore. Uther, good. Make sure the grain reserves are restocked. Arthur, I'll see to it. There's something we must do first. Arthur lays the unicorn's horn in a burial mound of stones. Arthur, I should never have ended your life. I'm sorry. Merlin and Arthur begin laying stones over the grave. Merlin looks up and sees a unicorn. Merlin, Arthur. Anhora. Voiceover. When he who kills a unicorn proves himself to be pure of heart, the unicorn will live again.